record, Mr. Sementilli, the defendant is present, all counsel present, jury and alternates are present. Good afternoon. Detective Gable is under oath. The defense may continue.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Detective Gable.
Good afternoon, sir.
I did want to clear up a couple of things. The Perkins, the recording of the two defendants, or Ms. Sementilli and later defendant, now someone who's pled, Robert Baker, were in the car, and we heard what we could hear in the recording that did come through, and the jury had a transcript of that recording. Remember that? And you followed through with it?
I'm sorry.
You followed along with the playing of the tape yesterday, and then we played a longer portion today. You remember
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay. Referring to page 3 of the transcript that was played actually both days, do you recall Mr. Baker saying, yeah, it's fucking insane, and then Ms. Sementilli saying, someone is doing this to me, to us. You remember that?
I recall that, yes.
Okay. Then, a few lines later, maybe 10 lines later, do you recall Ms. Sementilli saying, somebody did this, and then somebody talked? You remember that?
Yes. It was words like somebody did this, somebody talked. I remember hearing that, yes.
And what I wanted to clear up is, in the portion that was played yesterday, if the prosecution played it, the transcript said somebody did this, somebody talked. The portion that was played today, which was a longer portion, but included that, said somebody did this, somebody, and then undecipherable.
I remember seeing that when I was listening, yes.
Now, having listened to that, again, the defense, and you're being familiar with it, it's clear that it was somebody did this, somebody talked.
Yes.
Okay, right. But you do not know, obviously, whether what she was referring to could very well have been somebody talked about the affair, somebody exposed it, right? You don't know if she meant that.
Well, in the context of what's going on, I would say no.
Okay, well, I understand your context.
Since you're asking my opinion, yeah.
No, I'm just asking. You don't know for sure what she meant. You have your own opinion.
I have an opinion based on the context of what was going on.
Of course. And the final opinion will not be ours, but the jury's.
Sure, exactly.
But you don't know if she was talking about somebody told about our affair. You don't know that. Correct? One way or the other.
My opinion stands that I believe it was, yes.
Fair enough. Just wanted to be fair about what was actually on the tape recording. Okay.
Yes.
Let me return to one other thing that we talked about today, which also involved a tape recording, and that has to do with the Perkins individual who was in the cell with Monica Sementilli. You remember that, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I indicated to you that it appeared that somebody had indicated to Ms. Sementilli that Mr. Baker had confessed. Remember that?
Correct.
Let me refer to and you didn't recall an officer actually saying that to Ms. Sementilli, and then I followed that up with she never confessed to being part of the murder at all. Remember that sequence we were talking about?
I remember talking about it.
Okay. In looking at the Perkins transcript, the D on it is detective, right?
I believe so.
Partial and or Gable, it says on the...
Okay.
Right. Do you know whether it was you or Detective Partial who said to Ms. Sementilli, And I just want you, this is on page 33 for the benefit of the prosecution and or the court. And I just want you to,
I'm sorry, for exhibit number, are you talking?
it's exhibit 181.
Thank you.
33. It starts out with detective, maybe you can remember if it was you or Detective
Sure.
Marshall, saying, listen to me, Monica, you and Rob were arrested today, and I want you to understand. She says, this is, and then you interrupt, listen to me. There's a third person that's involved in this, and that person's not here. That person wasn't arrested, and there's a reason for that. She says, why? You say, okay, well, think about that. I'll be back. I'm going to get my partner. She says, why? Who's the third person? Oh, my God. There was all his blood in there. This can't be. Oh, my God, this can't be. And then the Perkins undercover woman says, so I guess he is your boyfriend, huh? And then she says, we do things together, but I don't have a boyfriend. That was intended to imply to her that someone had already talked and somebody had confessed and incriminated her. Isn't that right?
Well, she could take it whatever way she wants. Yeah.
But this was intentionally said by you.
It was implied. If you, yes,
Right,
it
that
was.
someone had talked, and this is your chance to tell us what really happened in your mind, correct?
Correct.
And at no time then after that did she say or confess to saying she was part of the murder or the planning or anything like that. She never said that, right?
No.
Okay. Let me go back, if I could. Well, let me ask you this. During the course of the investigation, did you ever recover the murder weapon?
No.
And what efforts did you make to try to locate? By murder weapon, we're talking about the knife or knives that was used in the stabbing death and murder of Fabio Sementilli?
Correct.
And what efforts did you make to try to find that knife?
Every search warrant that we conducted, one of the, or two, whatever, knives were part of the search of any potential knives that could have been used as a weapon.
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh. All the search warrants we conducted on physical locations. Part of the order was to, or directive was to search for any knives, sharp-edged objects that could have been used as the weapon.
And you were unable to find that, correct?
Correct.
Did you attend the autopsy of Fabio Sementilli?
No, that was Valley Bureau homicide.
Okay. And have you read the autopsy report?
7 years ago, yes.
Okay. And it does describe the type of weapon or knife that was used according to the coroner based on his examination of the wounds and so forth, correct?
I don't recall that part. I just remember fairly good the amount of wounds, but I don't remember the description of the possible description of the knife.
Okay. But the point is you never, and as far as you know, none of the officers or detectives actually located a weapon that matched anything that was in the coroner's report.
None.
That's why you said the murder weapon has never been recovered to this day, as far as you know.
To this day, as far as I
Okay.
know, yes.
All right. Let me then turn to one of the things I believe you testified to yesterday. And I'm referring to your testimony about, well, first of all, how many times did you yourself ask Monica Sementilli to describe or to tell you the route she took, as best she could recall, to Ralph's and Target to Ralph's home? How many times did you ask her to recall that or restate that to you?
3 times.
Was that all in the same interview?
Yes, it's the only time I interviewed her
Okay.
regarding this.
And you're aware that prior to your coming in on the case, there had been other interviews that predated yours, correct?
Other interviews, but I don't know the specifics of the interview.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. When you came in on the case, it was, what, 6 weeks or so, or how many weeks after the actual murder?
January 23rd, February, yes, 5 weeks.
Okay.
Just about, yeah.
And you knew there had been previous, obviously, an investigation that predated yours, correct?
Correct,
And who was in charge of that? Detective Parshall and Verna, is that right?
correct.
Okay. And you're aware that Monica Sementilli was questioned, what, the evening of the murder or the next day? What was your recall?
Yes, it was, could have been the evening, I think it was that evening, could have been the next day, but
And
yes.
that interview was tape recorded
I believe so.
and transcribed?
I don't know if it was transcribed. I remember reading their notes about the interview, but I don't remember if it was
Did
transcribed.
you, I'm sorry.
I don't think I've ever seen the transcribed version of it.
Well, did you ever listen to the video of the interview of the person who later became one of your prime suspects?
I read their statement on it, and I was briefed on it by Parshall and Verna.
Okay, and did they tell you that they had requested that Ms. Sementilli describe to them the route she had taken the day before, or that day?
I don't recall.
All right.
They probably did, but I don't recall.
So-
If they did, I don't remember what the route was.
Okay, and do you know between that date, which was January 23rd, 2017, or the 24th, and the time that you interviewed her, which was in May, is that right?
May, yes.
May 17th?
Something 18th or 17th, yeah.
Had she been asked any times in between, to your knowledge, to recreate the path that she had taken from her home to the gym, or the home to the Target to Ralph's back home? Did you,
Not to my knowledge.
but you didn't review any of the interviews of her prior to, other than yours, isn't that correct?
No, I told you, I reviewed their interviews
Okay.
when we first got the case, and I spoke to them.
And what was her description of the route she had taken to Target and Ralph's and back home?
I don't recall, but if you have something to show me, it can refresh my memory.
No, I'm just asking you if you knew what her...
I probably knew at the time, but it's been 7 years, I don't remember.
All right. So now, flash forward, we're talking about May, which is 4 months later after the incident. Is that right?
That sounds right, yes.
Okay. And you once again asked her to recreate the path that she had taken from her home to Target to Ralph's and back home. Is that correct?
Well, not once again, it was the first time I ever asked her.
First
Yes.
time you had?
Yes.
And she did that, correct?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And what did she describe to you? Do you recall that?
She did a lot of descriptions, but you'd have to narrow it down.
Well, did she tell you the route she took from home to the Target?
Yes.
All right. And what was that?
You have to pull the map up and I'll tell you.
Okay, you don't recall that.
In general, if general's fine, I'll tell you.
All right. And then...
She drove out of her neighborhood to Ventura Boulevard, hooked a left, went down to Target and turned into Target, stayed driving to the right, and then parked in front of the store.
Okay. And then at some point she went into the Target, correct?
At some point she did.
And then she left, correct?
She did.
Now, where did she tell you she parked in the Target parking lot when she entered?
She told me the area she parked, which was near the front of the store, center parking lot.
Okay. And you had seen a video, or you had access to a video of the parking lot from Target, correct?
Correct.
The one thing you did not have was the video from Payless, which would have shown you the view right in front of Payless store, correct?
Well, Payless, it turns out, didn't have an exterior camera, so that would have never occurred.
Oh, and I'm
But the-
sorry.
But the other camera, which is adjacent to Payless, Yes, that camera would have showed us who got in our car, correct.
Okay. And by the time you got on the case, that video had been destroyed or taped over,
Auto-deleted, yes.
right? Do you know why, since the murder was discovered the actual day that it occurred, why no one in your department or LAPD had gone out and gotten the video from whatever stores were in the neighborhood to see exactly what happened in that lot?
Well, they did. They went out and they got the parking lot video of the Target.
But they didn't go to the stores around it and get the one you're talking about?
No, because at the time she just said she went to Target and did shopping. So typically, that parking lot video would have been perfectly fine to corroborate her statement.
I see. Well, then why did you have her recreate that 4 months later?
Because I wanted to see if she was going to offer me information as to who got in her car that day.
Okay. So let's turn to that.
Okay.
It's your testimony that from looking at the Target parking lot video, that you could tell that somebody had walked by and got in her car.
You can see someone walk around from the Payless. You can see the image cross the front bumper. You can see the door opened and close and then drive away, and then that pedestrian's gone. So that part you have to assume they got in the car.
Okay, and in fact, in your testimony a couple days later, I believe you said you can actually see it, sometimes even better at normal view. It's not super easy, but you can tell someone got in the car, and that's all you can tell. And that's what we wanted to get the video to see, what was going on there. Remember testifying to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was from the Target, your view of the Target parking lot video, correct?
Correct.
Now, you also testified that you had prepared a Ramey warrant. I believe the date is on June the 12th of 2017, in order to get a warrant to arrest both Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli, correct?
Yes,
And you were the affiant on that Ramey warrant, correct?
that is correct.
That means that you prepared it,
Yes.
and you swore under penalty of perjury that it was true,
Yes.
what you put in there, correct?
Yes.
All right. Do you recall on in that Ramey warrant describing 1530 hours, which would be 3:30 in the afternoon? Is that right?
Yes.
Monica's F-150 stopped on the main parking lot for approximately 15 seconds. Is that correct?
Stopped in the main parking lot?
Main parking lot road for approximately 15 seconds.
Correct.
It was difficult to see clearly due to the far distance from Target's surveillance camera. However, during Monica's 15-second stop, detectives could see a pedestrian walk from the exterior front of the Payless shoe store toward Monica's F-130. Remember saying that in your Ramey warrant?
I don't remember. You're reading it, so yes, that makes sense.
Would it refresh your memory if I showed it to you? Okay. This is on page 23 of 33 of the Ramey warrant issued in June of 2017.
The highlighted portion?
And I highlighted. If you could just read it to yourself and
Sure.
let me know when you're done.
Yes.
And does that refresh your memory as to what you wrote in the Ramey warrant?
Yes.
Okay. And did you indicate in that a pedestrian appeared to walk around the front of her 150, then Monica drove off? After that point, that detectives could not locate the pedestrian.
Yes.
And was that true?
Yes, that's true.
So is it fair to say that you could not tell or see if a pedestrian had in fact gotten into the car in any way? All you could tell that someone walked around the car and then you could not locate him?
Well, you can see the door open, and it appears you can see it close. So the logical conclusion is they got in the car. So that was my conclusion.
So in other words, in the Ramey warrant, you wrote in what your logical conclusion was, as opposed to under penalty of perjury what the facts were.
No, that was my belief what happened, and that's ultimately, my conclusion was that the person got in the car.
Why didn't you say that in your Ramey warrant?
I did say that. It's just the way I wrote it that day.
I see. So again, you wrote a pedestrian appeared to walk around the front of her 150.
Right.
Then Monica drove off. After that point, detectives could not locate the pedestrian.
Okay, so I left out the door.
You left out the
So
door,
there's less detail.
and you don't say in here anything about your conclusion or it appeared or anything.
Well, then I didn't conclude it, but that's what I saw, was what I wrote. The only part I left out was I saw the door open.
The only
So
part
there's
you,
less information, not more.
the only part you left out is the part that led you to believe you say that someone got in.
Yeah, because he wasn't there anymore.
Sustained.
Truth is, you never saw that door open on the video, did you?
I did see the door open. We can play it.
Thank you,
Anything further?
Just a few comments. And this is just following up on some questions that you were asked. Defense counsel were asking you about the defendant and Rob Baker, if they ever, and getting one to flip on another one or something of that nature, right?
I'm sorry.
The
Start again.
defense asked you questions about when you arrested Monica Sementilli and Rob Baker, like the goal could be where you get one of them to flip or turn or implicate the other one, right?
He mentioned that, yes.
Right.
Yes.
He mentioned that to you,
Yes, he did.
that could be something that could happen.
Correct.
Now, did that ever happen? Did either one of them ever give up the other person's involvement?
No.
And then just to clarify, when you were, when you first came on the case, I know defense was asking you that the defendant was a suspect, that's why she was being followed and things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Now, you gathered more evidence as you went along, which, as you testify, was part of the delay in arrest on anybody, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, at some point, did you request, prior to her arrest, did you request the defendant's Microsoft records or her emails, things of that nature, in order to gain more intel on the defendant?
Yes.
What did you do?
I wrote a search warrant for her Microsoft, IG accounts, Google, and I think a few others.
When you say IG, is that Instagram?
Instagram.
Now, the Microsoft, what does that give you? What did you receive in return?
That's her email. I'm sorry, email account, the Calmati Mo.
As you're requesting these through warrants, did you ever notify the defendant that you're subpoenaing her records for her emails and her Instagram and her Facebook?
No.
Around what time frame was that when you requested that?
April 2017, I believe.
Now, did you get records back in a timely fashion before her arrest?
Before her arrest, it was circa. So it was either just before or just after, somewhere in there, I think.
And what I'm getting at is, were you able to see her emails before she was arrested?
So, Brill?
I believe the warrants came in just after the arrest, so no.
Okay. As far as knowing that she had a surveillance system at her home, how did you discover that?
Well, from the cameras, and the fact that the DVR somehow was found and stolen from the house, and the way she was looking at the screen, leaving the store, and streaming in very high amounts of data consistent with a surveillance video.
Okay, and so when you were able to actually get into the email, was it you that found that there was some deleted emails?
Yeah, I went straight to the trash file, and there was 4 emails in there.
And those 4 emails are the emails that gave her the instructions how to access her IDMSS Lite surveillance system through that app.
At least one of them was, yes, one of the 4. Mhm.
And another one was one that was forwarded to Robert Baker, giving him the instructions how to log on to her home surveillance.
Correct.
It is. Sustained.
Thank you. And then, again, you waited until June 14th. I know some questions were being asked. Why it was June 14th? as the point when you finally decided to arrest the defendant and Rob Baker. Can you explain then why at that point the determination was made to make an arrest?
Sure, yeah. So by that time frame, we had received all the information, or it was in.
Not quite. There was extensive cross-examination as to why there was not arrest earlier. It's overruled.
We were at the end point of gathering all the information, initial information that we had requested. We had already reviewed quite a bit of stuff. We had been surveilling them for several months. And like I told you the other day, I'm pretty good about finding people. And in my normal investigation, it became, unfortunately, pretty obvious that we weren't going to find this third person anytime soon. And so then we had to weigh arresting them, because the longer you wait, the more chances there's destruction of evidence. You know, they'll get rid of phones, change phones, they'll delete apps, all kinds of things. So we had to weigh that versus trying to find the third person. And we thought best to just pull the trigger and do it.
Defense also asked you about the fact that when you came on March 7th, I think he used the terms that the defendant was targeted at that point, and you had a response to that, but she was a person of interest that she was involved in the murder as of when you came on March 7th, 2017.
Yes, you were.
And you testified it wasn't just based on the fact that you knew from surveillance that she was having relations with Rob Baker. Is that right?
Correct.
Was there other evidence that led you to believe that the defendant at that time was involved based on the crime scene?
Yes, actually, it was actually a very important piece of evidence. The DVR, which was taken during that very short time frame to do this murder, was in a location in the garage that was about a 7 or 8 foot cabinet, and the DVR was high atop this cabinet. We knew that the suspects left through the garage, to the kitchen door into the garage. So if you walk out the door heading toward the Porsche, which is what you're going to take to leave, it seemed very unlikely that you would look around and look way up here and see a DVR in a garage.
Detective, 1 second.
So it seemed...
Detective, stop. I'm talking. Sustained.
Okay. So based on the DVR, without the very elaborate description, based on the DVR, the location, was that obscure to you for as far as where a DVR would be located?
It was obscure enough for me to suspect that the murderer had inside information before they went into the location to where it was.
It explains the mindset at the time. There's further evidence that's overruled.
During your history of investigating crimes, whatever they may be, have you come across homes that contain DVR systems? So was there any other evidence that led you to direct your attention at the defendant?
Yes, well, they learned, the OVB learned that Baker had previously been at the house and slept the night there. So
It is, although I understand that you're asking what evidence is, the detective had in his mind, it is cumulative. Sustained.
Okay.
okay.
Without going through everything again, then, it wasn't just the fact that she was having an affair with Mr. Baker or Rob Baker. There was evidence from the crime scene and other evidence you took into account in order to focus some attention on the defendant. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. During the overhear that we saw and heard from the police car, and defense played a longer version, the prosecution played a version, we hear a lot of gasping, I can't breathe. You were able to visualize this vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, I watched it live.
Okay, were there windows, doors open, anything that you you know to be the fact of the case of the car that she was seated within?
The dividing window door from the front passenger to the back was opened, and I believe Officer Davis cracked the side window for her.
Sustained.
Did you see any of the windows cracked or open?
I don't recall.
Okay. Now, and then finally, I know you guys like that word finally, but defense counsel asked you about, and said he would come back to it, the topic of Baker confessing to everything, that you telling Monica that. Upon refreshing any recollection, did you ever tell the defendant that Baker confessed to everything during this Perkins operation?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Any requests?
Your Honor. Detective Gable, I'm putting up Exhibit 7, page 14 of the case, People's Exhibit. And can you see the cabinet and where the DVR, in fact, it looks like a black box where it was located the night of the murder?
Yes.
Can you point that out, please? Whatever you got there.
Up here.
And can you show us where the door was from the kitchen to the garage?
Sure.
And can you show us if you know where the fuse box was?
I'd be guessing, but I think I know where it is. You want me to?
Isn't it right next to the?
I think it's there.
Okay. And it's true, is it not, that officers who arrived at the scene and were conducted the investigation long before you got involved located the fuse box, and that a lot of the fuses have been tampered with to stop the electricity?
Yes.
Okay. So those two items are located as they are in the photograph, right next to the garage door, correct?
Yes. The only difference, when was this photo taken?
Well, I believe it was taken during the investigation, so I'm hoping it was on the day or 2 or 3 after the murder.
Because I don't know what this is, but that's not the DVR then. If it's Because-
it's an exhibit introduced by the prosecution, so I can't tell you exactly.
Can you zoom in? Is it possible?
I didn't know he was talking to me. Can you see that better now?
I see a black figure, but if that's the day of the investigation, there's no DVR there.
As I told you, it's a crime scene photograph taken the night of the murder. Would that refresh your memory?
Yes, if so, because, if I may, Monica did describe the new DVR they got, and she described it as a very low, sleek, very small DVR. So it would have been very difficult to see on top of this cabinet. Nothing.
Well,
big
my
like
question
that.
was, do you know what that item is that was taken the
That's
night?
what I was asking you. It's the DVR's gone, so we don't know what that is.
Okay.
Right? It could be anything.
Why don't you ask me what I think happened in the case, and I can tell you that too.
Go ahead.
My only question is, knowing that that photograph was taken the night of the murder by detectives and officers from LAPD, does that refresh your memory as to what it is or what it was on that night?
Not at all.
Okay. But that is the location where you were told the DVR was.
That's the location where the very thin, sleek, small DVR was, yes.
Okay. And you're going by the description of Miss Sementilli,
Correct.
whose veracity you swear by, right?
Objection.
I'll withdraw it. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
The DVR, as you can see, was right above the cabinet, correct?
That was the area, yes, sir.
And the Porsche was parked right next to it, correct?
The Porsche was parked, if you zoom out, please.
Okay, I'll have my trusty associate do that.
Yes, right in this area, as you walk out, it would be directly in front of you.
So you could see from the Porsche, you could see the DVR from the Porsche, correct?
You could see the DV.
Do you know which direction the Porsche was facing, that is front in, front out?
I do not know. I'm sorry, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. But whatever it was parked right next to the cabinet where the DVR was, you know that, correct?
It was parked in the garage, yes.
Okay. That scene shows the entire garage, does it not, as far as you know?
It shows the area where they parked the Porsche. I forget how much is to the right.
Okay. Were you ever out in the garage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
The two Perkins video and recordings we played for you were, I think one was 20 minutes, one was about 30 or 40 minutes. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, sir, yeah.
How long was Miss Sementilli in that vehicle after the arrest before she was removed?
Oh, yeah, good question. After looking at it, I would say 25 minutes, maybe 20 minutes.
She was not in the vehicle during the whole time that the recording was made?
Oh, well, yeah, so how long was that, 43 minutes?
About?
Okay, so 43 minutes or so.
That was the entire length of the time that she was in the...
I believe the recording ended when they took her out of the vehicle.
My associate has informed me, I said Perkins, forget about Perkins. We're talking about the arrest of Monica Sementilli and Robert Baker.
That's what I thought we were referring to,
Okay,
yes.
and that was all planned out. They were arrested, they were taken someplace, and they were left in the car so that you could hopefully listen to what they were saying in the car, correct?
Well, they weren't left in the car, so we had to wait for tow, and we had to wait for an additional unit to transport a female.
But during that time, they were in the car.
They were detained, yes, they were.
Yes, of course.
It's normal procedure.
Okay, fine. And I'm just asking what
Yes.
the total length of time was that they were in the car from the time of the arrest until the time they were finally taken out and taken into the police station.
I would say within several minutes, the length of the recording.
Okay. And during that time, there was a space between the front seat and the back seat, you said, correct?
A space?
Well, an opening or something that you said?
Oh, yes, there's a sliding window.
Okay. But that's still in the interior of the vehicle, right?
It is.
And the only other space was the little top portion of the right and left front windows, correct?
Plus the air-conditioned vents that go through that window from the front.
So the car was left on with the air conditioning on,
Absolutely. We always do that.
all right? And were you in the car at all?
No, but that's normal procedure. We know the back of those cars are built for safety, not comfort. So typically officers leave that window open so that the AC can blow back on them.
So, again, they are there for safety, not for comfort.
They were built for safety and security.
Right.
Security, I'm sorry.
Not for comfort.
Yes.
And also to hear anything that could be heard if it's taped, correct?
To a degree, as you can see, the normal recording we got is not very good. So they're not wired like we wired it.
And the way you wired it didn't work.
Didn't work at all.
How long was Monica Sementilli in the cell during the Perkins ruse, shall we say?
I would estimate 2 hours, approximately, during the actual operation.
Well, how long was she in the cell with the Perkins operator?
Correct, that's what I thought you were asking. I'm guesstimating because it's been a while, but I would say 2.5 hours maybe.
And how long was she in the cell by herself or with the Perkins operator total?
After that, the jail people do what they do.
About
You know,
7
booking of
hours,
itself.
wasn't it? About 7 hours?
I don't know how long she was in cell. Once we were done with the Perkins, we left, and the jail people become responsible for them.
How long was she in the cell before the Perkins operation started?
A second, because the operator was in there first, I believe.
So
as
you
soon as she walked in, the Perkins began.
So before she was even arrested, you had already decided to place an operator in the cell with her to try and gain whatever information that person could gain, pretending to be a suspect, correct?
Sure, it was pre-planned. But in this situation, sometimes it just depends. If Perkins is very wide, you totally think outside the box. It depends on the situation.
I just
the
want to
person.
know what happened in this case.
So in this case, I don't recall, sometimes we put the Perkins operator in first and then introduce the person arrested. Sometimes we put the person arrested in first and then introduce the Perkins operator. I'm not sure which way it went in this one, I don't recall.
But the goal remains the same. The Perkins operator is to try to convince the suspect, if she is guilty, to confess at least to her or say incriminating things that you can use against her in a court of law. Isn't that
Not at
right?
all. No, it's totally mischaracterized what they do. They don't try to convince anyone about anything. And as you heard, very normal conversation. And there was nothing convincing, nothing coercing. She's just carrying a conversation. Every once in a while, she drifts it back to the case. And that's what a good Perkins operator does. And many times, you don't get a confession. Even as good as the Perkins operator is, it doesn't matter. A person's either going to talk or they're not going to talk. At best, you might get little nibbits, little admissions here and there.
I think you've answered the
Oftentimes, you get
question,
nothing.
officer. I
I'm
think
sorry.
you've answered the question.
Thank you. Sorry.
The Perkins operator did say things like making a deal, others are making a deal, maybe you should make a deal. They say things like that, don't they?
In general, they might, but I don't remember her saying that.
Okay, so we've listened to the Perkins thing, and you're saying that she was just there to listen and talk, that's all, not to try to convince the defendant to say anything.
She's not trying to convince her. She's trying to engage in conversation that will keep the topic on the case.
What if I told you that the records show that Monica Sementilli was put in the cell at 2:30 p.m. The Perkins operator, you said, was in the cell at the time, and
Well, I said I wasn't sure.
okay, and the Perkins agent was removed at 11 p.m. Does that sound right?
I don't recall the times.
That's your memory?
No, it's not my memory. I don't recall. I just don't. Yeah.
Anything for other people?
The car, we heard in the transcript, I mean, the very beginning, defense transcript, that they put the air on for her, right?
I don't remember if they said that or not.
Okay, would you like to look at the transcript? This is page 7 of defense's transcript, lines 6 through 9.
Yes.
Okay, so the air is on.
Air's on, according to him, all the way.
Okay. And when we were talking about a window, my bad, my mistake. When I'm talking about the window, were you talking about the window that divides the front and the back seat?
Correct, the one that everyone saw when they were sticking their head through.
Correct. There was when we listen to the defense transcripts, we don't have a video. There's long pauses, substantial long pauses, various places. Were you watching it live during those long pauses?
Yes.
And when you listened to the audio that the defense played and you heard those long pauses, do you recall what was happening during those long pauses where it sounds like nothing's going on?
Yes. The majority of the time, from the time that they were informed that they had warrants for murder, in the beginning, let's say the whole thing was 43 minutes, let's say the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the most, I'd say, after they were informed that they were arrested for murder, with those long pauses, their heads were down. You could only see the foreheads, the top of their heads, and they were in there, and then you could hear whispering, talking face to face.
Okay, and that happened continually then? That's the first part. What about the other pauses as the transcripts went on, or the audio went on?
There was periodic times, but it was less and less.
Okay. just some terms that you used, if we can clarify for the jury, you used, the undercover operation, you used the term UC a couple times.
Oh, okay.
What does that stand for?
UC is for undercover agent or officer, depending on, it can be undercover civilian we're using or undercover police officer.
And then you also interchanged it a couple times, or maybe I did, with PA. What is that?
PA, I think you got me on that one.
Okay, Perkins agent?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I might have used that. Do you know what a
Yeah,
Perkins
no,
agent is?
actually, is that the person running the Perkins? I don't know. Is
All
that
right.
me?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So the undercover person, that's a UC then?
Yes.
Okay. And then lastly, when the defense is showing you the photo that's up on the screen right now, you know, there's still some placards on the ground, so taken the night of the investigation, and obviously, as you testified, the DVR is gone, so there's some articles on top of this shelf.
Yes.
But you testified that the defendant had told you about a new DVR, but that wasn't until a conversation back in May, the only time you talked to her in 2017.
That's correct.
Okay, and at that point, she referenced some new DVR.
That's correct.
All right. And then finally, when we talk about the location of the DVR and someone finding it, as far as all your investigation, this isn't the entry point into the house to commit the crime, is that right?
It's the exit point.
So it's the exit point in order to take the Porsche to leave the residence, is that right?
Correct.
So the person had to have gotten the keys to the Porsche that were somewhere that person could easily find the keys.
Correct. Well,
Just think.
Do you have any evidence, or was it ever told you that the keys were in some obscure location where, did anyone ever tell you they were kept in some obscure location that somebody couldn't find?
I was told by Parcell and Brennan that the keys were located in the kitchen drawer that had blood on it, that came back to Baker's DNA.
Okay, thank you.
I think drove by the fence.
In fact, the location of the keys was told by Monica Sementilli to the first officers on the scene, where Fabio Sementilli usually left his keys, right?
Oh, probably so. She knew where they were, apparently. Yes.
Pardon?
If she told them that, it wouldn't surprise me. She knows where they are.
Right. She would know where Fabio Sementilli left his keys, right?
Yeah, but the point was Baker wouldn't know.
Oh,
That was
okay.
the-
But anyone going from the backyard into the kitchen could see the keys right in the top there, right?
I believe they were in the drawer.
And you believe they were in the drawer?
I thought they were in the drawer, but I could be wrong. I thought they were in the drawer.
We've had testimony from officers who were on the scene, so their testimony would be more accurate than yours.
It would be, yes. I'm recalling from hearing it from that. So, yes, I would, if you have testimony saying otherwise from, like Detective Vernon, then yes, I would say.
Okay.
that's correct.
And one last thing you don't know what's on top of that cabinet in the photograph we showed you, right?
I don't think anybody knows what's on there, no.
Well, you had 20 officers on the scene that night, correct?
I didn't know, but,
LAPD did, right?
there's one thing we know
Excuse
for
me,
sure.
second.
We know it's not the DVR.
Okay.
That's the one thing we do know. So what else is?
Because you were told,
I gotta tell you, let me interrupt. Detective Gable?
Yes.
When someone says objection,
Oh, I'm sorry. My hearing's bad. I'm sorry. I have really bad tinnitus. I should have told you earlier.
thanks. All right. Well, next time you're going to objection loudly.
Thank you. Sorry. I don't even hear it. So.
I understand.
Miss Sementilli was interviewed the night of the incident, correct?
I believe it was the night of.
And you didn't even review her interview report, or
I told
did?
you. I'm sorry.
It is.
Okay.
Anything?
No.
Thank you, Detective Gable. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
May I call your next witness?
Could we ask that he be available if necessary?
Yeah, I don't do this as a matter of course. I will in this particular case. Sure, come on. So that's it for today. That's the short story. A couple things I want to tell you. We're going to be in adjournment until tomorrow, Monday, at 9 a.m. The first thing is, as always, the admonition. You're not to discuss this case either among yourselves or with anyone else, or form or express any opinions or the cause is fine submitted to you. Next, I didn't make this up. You can check me out. You can Google this when you're done, what I'm about to say. Tomorrow is National Margarita Day. I did not make it up. But we are all good Americans. Let's honor the holiday. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday.